for breaking all that down.
Sours are true to name. They make you pucker up, and you'll get any range of flavors from sour to tart, a little bit of salt from time to time. But yeah, they get a lot of those there.
Okay, so that's the Hoops and Hops take on it. Right now, we're gonna get into it with the special guest, Gus Stathis from Ollie's Place, and like I said, come back on the other side of this so we can get into the NBA talk that we handle on Hoops and Hops.
Right now, I'd like to welcome a special guest to the show. This is Pay Me No Mind, the Hoops and Hops series. And today we're going to talk a little bit of craft beer with a gentleman I just met. His name is Gus Stathis.
Yes, sir.
And how you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing very well.
That's good. Hey, thank you a lot for your time today. I know it's kind of rushed, but I really appreciate you taking a moment to speak with me and hopefully clarify a few things or inform beer enthusiasts about a few, things that you would know being at the, on the retail side of this industry.
Yeah, for sure. I love talking beer, so any chance I get, I'm hopping in there, yeah.
Okay. So we met. I was out in Centerville, Ohio. Pay Me No Mind is based in Dayton, Ohio. And I was going to a music store and had to throw something away and walked in front of Ollie's Place. I've been out there a couple of times, and I saw you guys as the renovation was going on. And so I hadn't been out there in a while. I came back, and now you guys were doing business. I saw it was a patio out front, and then I realized it was a restaurant and a store. So how are things for you guys? When did you open? You can introduce the name of the place, and we can talk through it very quickly.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, so Ollie's Place opened up officially about 2 months ago now. And it's been going well ever since we opened the gates. Particularly the restaurant side has been really taken off. It's a cool concept, It's I've been telling people it's kind of like Cracker Barrel for alcoholics, jokingly. But yeah, so on the restaurant side, we've got a full kitchen, and we've got a bar. Obviously, the bar has 60 tap handles on it. A beer engine that we use to serve, like classic style English beers in a very traditional fashion. And we're also a whiskey bar. So we've got about 200, 220 in that neighborhood bottles of whiskey, your bourbons, your scotches, your Canadians, your Irish, all that good stuff. And
okay.
then you walk through a little door there, and then you're on the retail side. It's all under the same roof, it's all one business. And on the retail side, we carry about 15 to 1,600 different types of craft beer and package you can take home or drink at the bar. And we've also got a home brewing supply shop. So if you're a beer nerd, it's kind of the place to go.
Right. I agree. Like I said, I walked in and was immediately taken aback. I didn't realize that the home brewing materials or ingredients or equipment was going to be offered. So I thought that was a really neat aspect. I think you guys are on to something, and I did not get to try any of the food on my first visit because I wasn't out there for Ollie's, but I'm looking forward to making it back. Are you guys excited about the exposure that you guys could receive during football season, college football being big in Ohio?
Right, yeah, absolutely. And we're so as of right now, we close the bar at midnight, even on Sundays and everything. And I have a feeling that we're going to have to expand our, it's Sundays we close at 8. And I have a feeling that, not so much college, but with NFL season right around the corner, I have a feeling we might have to expand those hours because I'm a football fan myself. And if I can't watch a full game at the bar, then I'd be ticked off a little bit. So.
Right. Totally understandable. So we can back it up for a second. I'm just wondering, where are we in this current boom for craft beer? Just so I can have me kind of a timeline in my head. I'll be honest, it seems like maybe 5 or 6 years ago, it just seemed like it was pretty much your standard Bud Light, Miller Lite, and maybe Corona and Heineken.
Right. And that's a really good question. And you're right. The past 10 years or so have seen tons of new breweries come out. We finally have now in the United States of America more breweries than we had before Prohibition started. So we're starting so I mean, honestly, we're kind of in uncharted territory, because the last time that, the industry was this healthy, it was shut down by the United States of America. And, only a few breweries survived making non-alcoholic products, or, making alcohol and labeling it as medicinal, not too dissimilar from, I guess, what we're seeing with the marijuana industry now. You know what I mean? But,
right.
But yeah, we are kind of in uncharted territory. And you're right, there are a lot of breweries out there, and in my opinion, let me put it this way. The industry is alive and healthy, and it's kicking. Look at Dayton, even, for example. 4 years ago, we had 0 breweries. We have 11 now. And that's just little old Dayton. So you can imagine how much it's exploding in, the bigger metropolises and things like that. But right. I do see some breweries will probably be closing their doors in a year or so, maybe. And that's what I'm thinking, just because, it's such a competitive market now that, survival of the fittest, right? Those with a really solid portfolio and excellent beers that are reliable and consistent will survive, and then maybe some will fall out of favor.
Right. So, as I came into your spot, you had you guys do refill growlers, and then you also sell the various sizes, and then 6-packs, and then I think you had some single, like the long necks or whatever.
Yeah, so every beer in our shop, that we sell in a 6-pack, you can also buy a single of. Because that's just coming from the mentality that craft beer is not cheap. I mean, if you find a 6-pack of craft beer for under, $9, then you're in the right spot. So I like the mentality of, it's almost like equating to test driving a car before you buy it, right? You know what I mean? So you can spend the $2.50 on a single bottle before you go and make your $10 6-pack purchase.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So how do we, for somebody that's interested in going out of the standard beers, because I got confused all of the labels are very unique. It's almost looking at like a bunch of metal band T-shirts now, some of the artwork on the front. So where do you jump in this stuff?
Well, the first thing that I did when I was first getting into beer is I would go to Belmont Party Supply. Ollie's place is the same owner as Belmont. And Belmont was kind of the first place in Dayton to really offer tons of craft beer retail in singles. And my favorite thing to do was, I'd be out of the bar and somebody would give me a sip of beer and be like, oh, wow, that's good. I want to try more things like this. What style is that? And so I do some independent research, or just go to the shop and pick up beers of that style. And then that way, you can test out multiple spectrums of flavor and really just look at it from that perspective.
Okay.
Yeah. And also, and not just Ollie's place, but any good beer shop in the Dayton area, your DLMs, your Arrows, your Belmont Party Supply, your Liquor and Wine Warehouse, all of those guys are staffed with, knowledgeable crews. So if you walk in and ask to talk to the beer guy and say, hey, I like this, but I don't like this, 9 times out of 10, they'll be able to help you find, something that'll work for you.
Okay. So I know in the last several years that wine has become extremely popular, and it's being marketed and sold in a different fashion, and there's a lot of wine tasting that I see going on as I'm in there trying to get a growler filled or get me a new craft beer to try. Is there a group of people maybe coming back from the wine side now that we're doing so much more on the craft beer side? Is there a move back towards beer?
From my particular point of view, I haven't seen too much of it so much. Wine people tend to be wine people. Beer people tend to be beer people. Not to say that there's not some cross traffic involved. Obviously, there are some wine geeks who love beer and vice versa. but I'm really not seeing like a shift or anything like that. You know, both industries are alive and healthy, and people are just enjoying more flavorful drinks in general, whether it be beer, wine, or whiskey.
Okay. To back up for a second, so somebody that wants to, a young gentleman that wants to start experimenting with some better tasting beer, what would be like your top 3 suggestions, you know, to kind of get started with?
My top 3 suggestions? That's a good question, man. Well, I'd probably try to hit 3 different flavor profiles, right? So I'd go with, I think the 3 most popular right now in general would be, you know, your kind of light but still flavorful beers, your really hoppy beers, you know, your IPAs and things like that, and then the darker beers, your porters and your stouts. So if I was going to send somebody into a shop and say, hey, try these 3 beers that best represent those styles, I would say for a good light beer with tons of flavor, I'd go with a classic Pilsner. Not like a Miller Lite or something like that, which markets itself as Pilsner, but actually has, you know, corn in it. A proper Pilsner doesn't have corn in it, man. So I'd go with something like, something like Pilsner Urquell, or maybe Weihenstephaner's Pilsner. Those are both classic examples of just a really nice, crisp, clean European Pilsner. For a hoppy beer, I would say Bell's Two-Hearted Ale might be one of the best examples of an IPA, just a classic IPA. And that one's been around forever. It's solid. It's won multiple awards and everything. So Bell's Two-Hearted Ale is a fantastic kind of introductory IPA, and, you know, one that I still drink today. And then as far as the dark...
That's a great selection. I was just saying that's a great selection.
Very cool. Thank you. And then for the dark and roasted side, I'd probably go with Great Lakes Edmund Fitzgerald. That's their robust porter. It's going to really introduce you to those kind of darker, roasted, almost coffee and chocolate-like flavors without beating you over the head. And that one is brewed, you know, up in Cleveland at Great Lakes, so you also get some Ohio clout there with that one.
Exactly. Okay. Really quickly, how are women doing with the sections above the Pilsner level? I know my wife, I mean, that's one, generally when my main beer, if I'm just sitting around, I do tend to stick with Miller Lite. And,
sure.
The wife generally would like a sip or 2 of Miller Lite, which is fine. But once I get into bringing home some IPAs or, you know, I have a growler, I rarely have to worry about splitting my drink or my beverage with my wife.
Right.
So she might be in the minority there. How have women been doing with the heavier profiles and whatnot?
Yeah, actually, man, we've been seeing a lot of women coming in and drinking massive imperial stouts, and, you know, I've got a few female customers that just want to have their faces slapped off with hops. So
okay,
a lot of them are really, you know, getting into it as much as anybody else. You know, I think the standard model there for a while, and you know, I hate generalization and stuff like that, but a lot of women were, you know, viewed to be drinking all the fruit beers and things like that. You know, your Lindemans Framboise and your Fatheads Bumbleberry, which obviously there's nothing wrong with those beers; they're fantastic, but everybody seemed to perceive that the women needed that kind of fruity, sweeter flavor, and that's just absolutely untrue. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Women gravitating towards sours, though, more so than men. I'm seeing a lot of women gravitate towards sour beers, which I find interesting. It's really interesting because, I mean, sours are a love or hate thing because, you know, it is a sour beer. It makes your lips pucker up a little bit.
Okay. I'm not a big fan of some of the different flavored beers as far as introducing fruit. That's just not kind of my thing.
Right.
What's some of the harder the lines that craft beer fans, you know, what's the hard lines where people are a little more divided in this? That's something that I'd be interested in.
The hard line, explain that a little bit more. Yeah.
I mean, like, I'm sorry. I meant, like, what would be some differences where beer lovers would clash with one another in the beer world. I mean,